Fallout Equestria the Chrysalis, Chapter 26, Part 4.
Okay, we're in the middle of a changeling hive established in a stable. The guards are extremely well equipped and trained, and there's only one way in or out. If we're lucky, we can hide you in the carts and get you out that way, but it's going to be tricky. We might have to improvise along the way.
Dusty slapped a magazine into his rifle and chambered around.
So, this is Serenity?
Yeah, and we can do the whole I told you so thing later.
I said.
We've got more problems. Number one, you're not using mats. We're not killing any Ling on the way out.
Avoid fighting if possible,
Dusty said, giving his rifle a final check before slinging it.
I'd say that's standard escape and evasion, but I don't think this situation is standard in any way.
Not if possible.
I clarified.
Period. We're not going to hurt any changeling in Serenity.
Dusty's head started to come around to voice some objection, but I cut him off.
And no, this isn't a changeling thing or a hive thing or anything like that. It's a pip-buck thing. Every single changeling in this hive has one. I assume you understand the difficulty that possesses?
He remained frozen for a moment, mouth hanging halfway open before recovering.
Oh, we are so fucked.
Yeah, that was my appraisal as well.
I said, tucking the last of my electronics into my saddlebags, right alongside my pistol.
So, we're going out with the intent of not harming any Ling, because we're not hostile. This is so weird.
Starlight murmured, while Dusty muttered to himself and returns to gathering his equipment. I finished with my own belongings. My rifle was loaded and set alongside my bags, with a pair of spare magazines tucked inside the bags along the suppressor. Having not even given myself the extra 10 seconds or so it would take to attach it. I didn't plan to use the weapon, but it wouldn't fit in the bags. Maybe I could scare some Ling away from attacking us without actually shooting them?
Okay, time's up.
I said.
Everything else goes in bags, and keep those pip-bucks powered off.
I pulled out one of the Matrix disruption grenades, one of the pair I had in my own bags, and pressed it into Dusty's hooves.
If things start to deteriorate, trigger this. It'll kill any chance of stealth, but it'll also kill any active pip-bucks and power armors around us. No EFS, no broadcasters.
Yeah, I'm familiar with these,
Dusty said.
It'll probably kill Starlight's weapons too.
Her ears perked up, four hooves tightening around her rifle.
Oh, wait, we can't kill my Lancer. It's only temporary,
I said.
And hopefully we won't have to use it.
The last of our equipment disappeared into the bags. I directed them into the carts, while Sickle ditched the pair of unconscious changelings hidden within the lead cart. The blankets came out again, and I draped them across the carts.
Okay, be quiet and think happy, peaceful thoughts.
Sickle gave a discouraging snicker, but we had little choice. I hitched up the cart and set off, though slower than before. Slower was something we couldn't afford, but the substantial extra weight was hindering progress. A little reluctantly, I asked.
Sickle, do you have any buck on you?
She snickered again, followed by rustling as she rooted through her containers. Several seconds later, the corner of the blanket flipped up to reveal a thick tablet resting on a spiked hoof.
Here.
I floated it over in my magic, tucking the blanket back in place and down the pill. Moments later, I gripped my teeth and really put my shoulders into the harness, hauling it along at a brisk pace. Even pushing that hard, it didn't feel like I was straining myself. Though I wonder now if that was from increased strength or altered perception. I found myself thinking I could probably plow through any guards that got in our way, and was already starting to smile at the thought before quickly wiping away those thoughts. Instead, I reflected that taking a drug known for increasing aggression was probably not ideal, given my situation. Soon we were making our way through crowded halls, and I put on my mask of bored neutrality. Inwardly, I was growing increasingly worried. While the changelings made their way for a guard hauling a pair of carts, it still slowed my progress. I nearly jumped each time a changeling went buzzing overhead, suddenly paranoid that they'd land on one of the carts, only to find its contents rather more soft and squishy than they should be. My heart was pounding furiously when we reached the freight elevator, and I found myself suppressing trembles as the adrenaline urged me into action. My body screamed at my attempts to still it, clamoring for action while I did my best to appear calm. I also resisted the urge to look back. I feared that my companions might fidget, draw attention, but there wasn't anything I could do about it either way. I stayed stock still for the agonizing wait. A deep thump sounded from the elevator, and the hydraulic doors hissed open. I gave a quick sigh of relief and pulled the carts in, and quickly shut the doors. We were alone, and I pressed the button that sent the lift up.
We're on our way up to the entry level.
I said as I lined the carts up, ready to move.
The lift goes to a freight handling area. After that are security positions, the stable door, and some underground storage rooms with ramps up to the surface. If we're found out, trigger the grenade and run for the exit.
In silence, I watched the needle of the elevator's dial make its way up to the number 1 at the top, and the elevator thumped and rattled to a halt. The doors opened, and I walked out into a large room cluttered with a wide variety of equipment. A concerning amount of it was military. There were at least 10 suits of heavily battered Enclave power armor stored there, one of which was being inspected by a pair of changelings. Dozens of magical energy weapons were stacked in a pile. 2 semi-portable plasma cannon turrets rested on pallets, with one bearing obvious fire damage. Containers of all sorts were stacked neatly, ranging from metal barrels to wooden crates, and even a small collection of metal and plastic containers with cloud locks. 4 more changelings were overseeing the loading of a heavy wagon, which was already carrying a literal ton of machinery. They paid me no attention as I walked by.
Well, the spark coil should be ready by the time the weather clears, but I'm not sure we have enough to get everything going. We'll make do. I'm more worried about raw materials, parts we have or can get easily. Structural steel is the limitation. Plenty of places to get more, it's just heavy.
I wheeled our carts through the door and into the connecting hallway. It was a broad, reinforced strip with high vaulted ceilings. It was more like a road tunnel than a stable hall. You could drive a tank down it with room to spare. At the end of the tunnel, I could see the stable door standing open and inviting. Between it and us was the entryway security. I had seen it marked on the map, but it was not at all what I had imagined. They weren't simple guard stations, it was a full-fledged fortress, with firing slits peering out from yards-thick concrete walls on either side of the tunnel. 2 more plasma cannon turrets sat by the sides of the fortifications, flanking the entrance to the tunnel with cables leading back to wire ends of the stable's power. Further trench-like fighting positions crossed in front of the main positions, all overlooking the open kill zone just inside the stable door. I could see more than half a dozen soldiers in the forward fighting positions, all clad in black-painted steel ranger armor. I could only guess how many more were inside the fortifications themselves. The adrenaline screamed at me to run as fast as I could. I instead focused on walking calmly, passing by the ominous, darkened firing slits, and overly conscious of my excessively hostile passenger. If one of those soldiers noticed that the ever-present red mark on their EFS was actually moving, we were in trouble. The soldiers remained standing and sitting by their fighting positions, talking with each other and paying no mind to the cargo-hauling guard approaching them. A klaxon blared out of nowhere. I jumped. The soldiers froze, their attention snapping up. An icy fear clawed at my gut, but they quickly spread out across their fighting positions, setting up and facing the entrance. Moments later, a buzzer sounded, and a spinning light lit up above the giant stable door. I lurched and continued at a trot. I was passing the soldiers when they realized I was there.
Hey, hold up!
The closest one called out, her voice amplified and staticky.
You know the deal. Lockdown means no ling in or out. I just need to deliver this.
I called back, picking up the pace. With a tortured shriek of metal, the door started to move, slow and ominous.
I don't care. Rules are rules.
When I didn't stop immediately, she broke into a trot after me, her armored hooves smacking loudly on the concrete floor. It would only take an instant to use the heavy weapons at her side.
Hey, get back here! Okay.
I said, slowing my pace, and she slowed to a casual walk.
Dusty, you're up. Huh?
Past the sound of her confusion, I heard the click of the Matrix disruption grenade arming. A moment later, the edge of the blanket lifted, and the grenade clattered noisily to the ground.
What the?
A soft thump preceded the sharp discharge of the grenade, and all chaos broke loose. My vision was immediately filled with a flash of insanity across my EFS as Ocelli's Pip-Buck was overwhelmed, only to die an instant later. I felt like someone had smacked me in the horn. Even as I staggered from that, I was already pulling out the cart straps and shouting.
Run!
My vision cleared to a scene of partial darkness and flying sparks. Several of the overhead lights had exploded with the discharge. The glowing lights of the plasma cannon turrets were fading, and the soldier was frozen like a statue. teetering forward off balance until she crashed face first to the ground. Sickle exploded out of the lead cart with a roar, spiked hooves clattering and scraping the concrete as she quickly looked for targets. I heard Dusty shout from behind her, "Go, that way!" I had just gotten the straps undone when Dusty came galloping past me, followed closely by Starlight. I grabbed my belongings and my magic and took off in the same direction, racing towards the spinning orange light, and Sickle growled and galloped after me. I glanced back. I could see changelings stepping out of the fortifications. Weapons floated in their magic. I turned back and put everything into running. But no shots came. The door was halfway shut as we reached it. Dusty and Starlight were out first, and I leapt out after them, emerging into a dimly lit warehouse-like space with similar all-concrete construction. Sickle caught the edge of the door and tumbled, crashing into the ground, but safe. I looked back, past the steadily closing door. A few changeling soldiers faced our way, still back by the fortifications. One was looking at her weapon, while the others were quickly swapping out spark packs. I reached into my pack with my magic, drawing out the second Matrix disruption grenade. I only had a few seconds before the door would fully be shut. I armed it, dropping it just inside, and stepped back. The door had barely shut when the pulse went off, followed by a loud whine of machinery winding down. The external control panel let out a loud squawk, its lights flickering before going dark. The lights ringing the door flickered, all but one going out. Wow, they made it out of there pretty easily, which is a little bit too convenient. I feel like something else is gonna happen. We'll see. But anyways, let's get on to our sneaky donators. Top donators: Jessie Smith, Zar630, BadassWaffle, Onlyonething, Ceru, Orion, and Caladis. Matchvic, Jock, Luciisu, Darkside, Rayden, Runescythe, Will, Twinkie, Luigi, Chancellor, Crust, Big Smoke, Murder Princess, Little Mighty, Solar Symphony, and many more amazing people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.